Students, online students, Mr. Francavella here. Want to talk about subordination today. Subordination is choosing to make one of the clauses in a multiple clause sentence into a subordinate clause for a specific reason. One of the reasons is to avoid this effect: choppy sentences. When you have this many sentences and this much word repetition, it's very unnecessary. It's not very effective writing. How do you avoid it? Well, you could choose to make the clauses be independent clauses joined together more smoothly, like with semicolons and limiting some of the words, avoiding some of the repetition. But another way is subordination. Driven by the sophomore, here's a phrase, it's not a subordinate clause. The car went very fast and skidded off the road, ending up totaled, and the passengers not wearing seatbelts were badly injured. So right here, actually this sentence is made up of these blended together, first by a phrase, past participial phrase, but also by a comma and a coordinating conjunction. This is not what we're going to be focusing on for most of the lesson. When you want to join independent clauses, one choice is to make them of equal emphasis by using a comma and a coordinating conjunction, like and. And then again here we have a participial phrase. So there are many ways to join the clauses, but I'm going to be asking you to do something that's not happening here, to make subordinate clauses, to join independent clauses together. So, excuse me for 1 second. One way to join the clauses is to use these conjunctions. They're called coordinating conjunctions. They make two clauses come together of equal emphasis. Both would be independent clauses. Just remember, when you use these to join the independent clauses, you need a comma with them. Comma and, comma but. I went to the store, comma, and I bought some milk, which is different, too, from I went to the store and bought some milk. In that case, I don't have multiple clauses, so I would not have a comma with the and. I went to the store and bought. I have I, the subject, went, bought. I have two verbs with one subject. That's called compound verbs. But today we're going to be focusing on subordination. So we will be focusing on these conjunctions. We're going to be focusing on this group, subordinating conjunctions. If you remember, they begin adverb clauses and relative pronouns or relative adverbs when, where, or why. So this is our group we're going to be choosing. When you look at this group, if you want to, be able to recall them and use them, want to know that you can recall them, you might memorize the whole group, or just understand that there are groups of these words that go together by meaning. So several of the conjunctions indicate time: after, when, since, so on. Several of them indicate cause-effect situations. Cause-effect. Because is cause-effect. In order that is cause-effect. So that would be cause-effect. So they're there for a reason. They have specific meanings inherent in them. So far we've talked about time, temporal meanings, cause-effect, and contrast. Although is contrast, even though, of course, is contrast very similar, though. Let's see, what else would be contrast? Although, I already said that. Rather than, all right? So there are, I didn't name them all, but those are the main meaning groups. Except for there's another called if, that would be conditional. Something might happen on the condition of this happening. So 4 groups of meaning. So remember that when you're choosing which ones to use. So now I am referring to a document I sent you on Edmodo, and an exercise is actually from your book, which you haven't got access to yet, so I scanned these. So I want us to go to, let's see. Yeah, this is what I want. So these are 2 sentences, 2 independent clauses that could be joined together. What might I use to join them together? Well, I have to see how they are related meaningfully. And I would say that these 2 sentences, the investigators have gathered and analyzed all the evidence, and we may expect a full report. I would say they're more temporally related, but they could be cause-effect related too. So if we want to focus on how they're related in time, and that's our more important meaning that we want to convey, then I might use after for the first conjunction, or as soon as. As soon as the investigators have gathered and analyzed all the evidence, we may expect a full report. Why might I choose that instead of a cause-effect conjunction and bring out that idea? Perhaps I want to emphasize that we have to be patient because it takes time to do that, or the importance of the investigator's work. So it takes time. The choice of the conjunction is somewhat under it's up to the writer on what to emphasize. For number 2, Tom had listened to the music of Bruce Springsteen for years. He had no idea a live performance could be so exciting. The ideas here are related by contrast. This had happened a long time without this understanding. All right? So the 2 are sort of opposite. So I would use although, even though. Although Tom had listened, he had no idea. Number 3. This one is a little bit difficult. This one is somewhat conditional. And I might start here, and I might put this second sentence as the first clause. If the team had improved its performance by giving Flynn more time on the field, it could have suffered fewer injuries this year. So I did change the wording a little, but I kept the ideas. So if something, then something, right? So do understand when I use if-then clauses, one of those clauses indicates something that probably happened further in the past than another. You can't say if I would have, then I would have. Those are the same time. You have to have one tense be further in the past. If I had done this, then I would have done that. So past perfect comes before present perfect. Those are the 2 names of those verb tenses. And then again, this one, number 4, is conditional too. We will not be able to resolve the situation amicably. We must be willing to leave our prejudices at the door. So I would use if again. But or provided that. Provided that we are willing to leave our prejudices at the door, we will be able to resolve the situation amicably. That could work. It's the same idea as if. So that gives you some indication on how to join sentences using conjunctions, but conjunctions that convey the meaning you want to emphasize. This section of the book of the same chapter is very important because it's really what you're going to be doing in your writing eventually in stylistic analysis. You're going to be explaining what you believe the author's intentions were in their choice of sentence creation, syntax creation. So when we see this first sentence, which starts with a subordinate clause and ends with an independent clause, we see that they are related. We have when there, temporally related, right? So we see that we have this first, though. It's also placed first. When I saw England for the first time, automatically, before we go on, our mind moves very quickly. We expect a certain result, but we get an opposite one. We expect someone who experiences England by actually going there and visualizing it. But then we get something totally opposite. This girl experienced it by sitting as a child at a desk and probably reading a textbook. So we have the effect here is that this first clause sets us up for something unexpected, even more so than if it had come later. We wouldn't have that. So we have the irony, the unexpectedness, emphasized by this time focus and by the placement of the subordinate clause being first. So number two, we have, if now I speak of all this, I give the impression of someone on the outside looking in, nose pressed up against a glass window. That is wrong. Same author. This woman was, even though her name is Jamaica, she was from Jamaica, and Jamaica was part of the British Commonwealth, and so it was, England was the home country that was admired, and the people who weren't originally from there were probably feeling like outsiders. This is the purpose of delaying the independent clause till the very end and prefacing it with a subordinate clause. So a person who's on the outside, nose pressed up against the glass window as if they were window shopping and desiring what was inside, we're getting that feeling by being delayed from the main idea, all right? And also, we're getting a twist at the end because that is wrong. So she's contradicting our wrong mindsets, right? So what's the choice of independent clauses is, subordinate clauses here, is the subordinate clause delays our last thought, makes us feel like the actual person being described, that we think they're feeling that way. And so the syntax reinforces that wrong impression. That's what's happening here. So do remember that syntax sends a message as much as the meaning of the words themselves. In this case, Tim O'Brien, a Vietnam vet who wrote about Vietnam experiences, we have a subordinate clause here first, and then we have an independent clause. In this subordinate clause, we have a conjunction of contrast. So we're emphasizing contrast, something maybe not unexpected, but we're having contrast. Why? Although the old man never confronted me about it, there was one occasion when he came close to forcing the whole thing out into the open. So here we have the idea, emphasized first, of something opposite of what happens later, so that we value what happens later more. And this word, the diction helps too, the word choice, never versus one. So something really never happened except once. So there are multiple ways of emphasizing and conveying the word choice, but also the syntax emphasizes contrast. So just getting you used to understanding that the subordination is part of the syntax choice, which conveys meaning almost as much or even as much as the meaning of